Good afternoon, everybody. This is Eric Foster, co founder of the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC, and bringing another Make Truth Simple Again moment from my Common Sense by Eric Foster Substack page. Here's something that I think is really important that we have to look at right now. We're in a desperate, drastic situation in which Donald Trump is effectively, well, not effectively, actually, declaring war on non MAGA Americans. And in that, the desire that he has to not only deploy active duty military in Democratic majority voting cities and states says that he does not consider those communities as American communities. He considers those as somehow enemy combatants, people that aren't American, or the like. And his desire to use false claims of crime to justify these actions and just out and out, not only out and out lies, but out and out denigration of the people in these cities should be something that for any non-MAGA American to be a oh hell no moment. And so here's some things that I think because I just saw a article from Time with regards to Governor Westmore in Baltimore in Maryland and Trump threatening to send in the military, active duty military, to deploy them in Baltimore. So Governor Moore invited Trump to come to Baltimore, an American city, to do a walk through the neighborhoods to actually see what's happening in the neighborhoods in Baltimore, an American city. Donald Trump refused. If you notice, Donald Trump rarely goes into any area where he might face or see people who don't agree with him. He's not capable, nor are the MAGA dictatorship people around him capable of sustaining and even accepting the fact that there are Americans that don't agree with them. So he says no, he wants to deploy the military because he, under the lie, wants the governor to clean up Baltimore. Now, couple this with an additional statement that he made. It was in a number of papers, but I was just reading it in the New Jersey or njlive.com, where he's threatening to remove Mayor Bowser for, in his opinion, lying about the fact that crime is down. Now, here's the reality: crime is down in DC, but he is so upset that data and people are not willing to just lie for him. Not everybody is willing to. That he is threatening to remove a duly elected mayor, a mayor who won 80% of the vote in her most recent election. So he's saying to the people that voted for her, and excuse my language, but he's saying, fuck you. He's saying, I don't care about your vote. I'm going to remove her because she won't lie for me and make my lies valid. And the math and the data and the stats don't lie for me. So I'm going to fire her. He has no legal authority to fire her. He has no legal authority to put anybody in Illinois, in Chicago, in Baltimore, in New York, in San Francisco. But also, here's the way that he described in the NJ.com article with his threat. He said that Washington and Democratic majority voting communities are crime infested, rat-filled hellholes, and then doubled down and said that DC is full of rats. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've been to DC a lot over the past 10 years. I'd say I've been to DC probably on average 3 times a year over the past 10 years. So that's 30 trips. And I've spent roughly about 3 to 4 days on average with those trips. So while I'm not a resident, that's about 90 days of interaction in the city of DC. I've seen in my 90 days of visiting DC, I have not seen one crime incident. That is objective reality. I haven't seen a shooting, I haven't seen any violence of any kind. I've seen homeless people, but being homeless is not a crime. And I'm going to give you all a full disclosure moment. In 2015, for part of 2015, I was homeless. Economically, things were really going bad for me. And I did not have stable housing. I had to spend some nights in my car and sleeping on friends' couches and the like. That's not a crime. Now, to MAGA, that's a crime. So, in MAGA's eyes, I committed a crime, but that's not a crime. So, now, through the grace of Jesus and the work that I do in multiple sectors, I am not dealing with that. Now, my economic conditions were a lot better when President Biden was president than this crazed, demented, mentally decomposing person, but I'm still doing well. So, in going to DC, like I mentioned, roughly 90 days over the past 10 years, I've not seen any crime. Now, here's the objective reality: DC is 61.3 square miles of land. There's, on average in 2024, there were 80 crimes a day committed in DC on average. That's an average of 1.3 crimes per square mile. Now, through various data like ShotSpotter and other data and tracking, crime stat, etc., most of the crime in DC is in roughly 11.8 square miles of the 61.3 square miles. So if you're in the rest of DC, the my math is going to probably be a little off, but I believe 49.4 or 49.3, if I'm correct. No, 49.4. So if you're in the other 49.4 square miles of DC, the likelihood that you are experiencing or even seeing some sort of criminal activity is less than, I'd say, less than 2/10,000ths of a percent. So 2/10,000ths of a percent. The average citywide, in terms of you seeing a crime, is 0.36% on a daily basis. You could go years without seeing any criminal incident in the city of DC. That is just a reality because there's density and then there's familiarity when crimes get committed. So you add all of those factors together, the lie that DC, Baltimore, my home city and native city of Detroit, Los Angeles, and others crime ridden hellholes is just bullshit. When I lived in Detroit, I lived in Detroit, I'm 53. I lived in Detroit 40 years out of my 53 years. I only saw one murder. Now, I've had friends that have been murdered, I've had family members that have been murdered. My mother was murdered. But in those instances, those were close proximity related crimes. Those weren't the lie of just roving street gangs or the like, or as if we are in Lebanon and Beirut when in the 80s when the PLO was fighting against Israel, or we're in Iraq or Afghanistan, all that bullshit. So in 40 years, one murder. And over 40 years, I think I directly saw with my own eyes and experienced 17 crimes in 40 years. That's an objective reality. And I ask people to look at their objective reality and get away from the lies that come out of MAGA media. If you've not been robbed, if you've not seen a crime, if you don't see crime on your block, you don't see crime in your neighborhood, you don't see crime when you go to the store, what that means is that the criminal activity is in segmented pockets and happens at segmented times, and it's not something that's happening on every block, every corner, and every next door home. So you can't accept the lie that it's happening right next to you if you go years and you don't see it except for watching it on TV. It's happening, but it's not happening at the extent. And people have lost their eyes and lost their objective reality. But I'm going to kind of dove it back because I kind of got off a little bit from what I wanted to focus on. I think that this is an important time for governors like Governor Moore, Governor Pritzker here in Michigan, Governor Whitmer, and others to do a few things. One, I think it's time to activate the state's National Guard, to take that off the table and force the hand of the MAGA dictatorship regime in DC. Because if the National Guard is activated by the commanders, who are the state governors, then what you're doing is you're forcing Trump and his minions to have to go to an extreme, fully unsustainable. Now, any actions that they try to do to activate them are unsustainable, but an even more extreme, unsustainable position of trying to activate National Guard in Democratic majority voting states under the lie of the Insurrection Act. Because at that point, what he would be saying, and he would have to say, is that Americans are waging war on America, which is a lie. But I think if you take that step and take his ability to freely potentially call with lesser means, what you end up doing is you force a higher burden for him to attempt to basically override your activation. And two, if he still tries to then go and deploy active duty military, the National Guard, state police, and local police need to be a wall. Because what I think will happen is that the military will see his actions as corrupt and as illegal and will not go forward. That is just the reality. I think we have to break some eggs here and take some proactive steps to consider how do we take away the validation, but then also in responding to the lies, using information like I mentioned in terms of saying, for example, with Governor Moore, part of your response should be that the person who was elected to the office of president is not willing to visit an American city because he only got 12.13% of the vote. So what he's saying is that for the rest of you who didn't vote for him, he doesn't consider you American enough to come and actually see how you live in an American city. Use that to the advantage in communications. Make truth simple again. Use that to the advantage. Two, use to the advantage the ability to say and demonstrate that this man is making up a false reality. In real simple terms, Baltimore, DC, these other cities, look, 95, 98% of our area on any given day is not having a crime incident. And so if you're not having a crime incident in those spaces, then it can't be a war zone. And that's just an active reality. Also, I would suggest driving and showing real time video, deploying staff to drive through and show real time how life looks like in Los Angeles, in Baltimore, in DC, to demonstrate that these are not the lies that Donald Trump is saying, that Pete Hegseth, that MAGA mainstream media are saying, that they are basically lying on Americans. And you tie this back to the 2020, I believe it was September 20th or September 19th, ABC town hall with Donald Trump. And it was roughly at the 30-minute mark. I think it was 30 minutes and 52 seconds, in which George Stephanopoulos finally had enough of him calling American cities Democrat cities, and American states Democrat states. And George Stephanopoulos just asked him and said, these are American cities. These are American states. And Donald Trump said, no, they're Democrat cities and states. That was the most clear, direct example of Donald Trump telling you exactly that for you in the non MAGA American majority, he does not consider you to be American. He has a line of separation in his mind and then from his policies that says, if you don't vote for me, you're not American. Your citizenship does not have equal standing. Well, if you go back and you look at the vice president of the Confederacy and his speech, I believe it was in March of 1861, in discussing why the Confederacy existed, his premise was, which was something that was consistent among the 13 states that rebelled against America, was that the Constitution goal of equality among the races is an error, and that the real goal should be that the white race is a superior race to the Negro race, and that there cannot be equality among the two. So let me juxtapose that to right now. Donald Trump is saying, if you don't vote for me, I don't consider you American. If you aren't rolling with me, you don't exist as an American citizen in the same equal way as a MAGA citizen or as a MAGA state. I'm sorry, that's the lighting that I'm sitting in, so I apologize for it kind of fading in and out, but this is still me. So the premise is very similar to the vice president of the Confederacy statement in March of 1861 that the Constitution, in their opinion, created segregated classes where one was superior of humanity and that others were subservient. In the MAGA framing, and if you look at the Claremont Institute, if you look at the Heritage Foundation, if you look at the Pacific Legal Foundation, America First Legal, and others, that's the same premise that they have, that Americans who voted for President Biden, Vice President Harris, third party, others, those who didn't vote, we're all non-Americans. Majority voting states that are Democratic, including even if Trump may have won, but the state governments like North Carolina, in terms of its statewide elected officials, or Wisconsin, or Michigan, or Pennsylvania, or Nevada, except for the governor, or Arizona, that we are all, because the electeds who are elected statewide are Democratic majority, that we are somehow not American. Well, that's the premise. And so when he lies and calls American communities crime infested, rat filled hellholes, he's talking about you. So if you're one of the 75 million, well, if you're one of the 79,333,813 Americans who voted for Vice President Harris, third party candidates, or down ballot and skipped the top of the ticket, you need to take this personally because he, Fox, Breitbart, the Washington Examiner, and others, everybody including, oh, let me say also MAGA Mike Johnson, John Thune, 99% of the congressional members of what used to be the Republican Party, but which is now the MAGA dictatorship party. This is what they think about you. Are you okay with this? Because you're not going to just be able to live a normal life under this premise, this theory of the case. So, another thing to make truth simple again, you can't live in a MAGA dictatorship world unless you pledge allegiance to MAGA. Your life will be hell, period. You will live under military occupation. It's happening right now. So, once again, what are we going to do? What we at the Future Today and Tomorrow have game plans. So, not only how do we engage the non MAGA majority throughout communication, education, forms, literature, etc., but also how do we campaign and elect officials across the country, Democratic, independent, non MAGA Republican, Green Party, Libertarian, workers, workers' family, taxpayers, and any other party that is non MAGA, you can join the team because that's how we save the country. And then we take aggressive positive action to implement policies that will be helpful to everybody, including MAGA Americans. We don't go the slow route. We go the break eggs fast route to implement so that we can then see the benefits of those policies. So please visit www.futurepac.today. Help us in this fight. Help us elect individuals and get to the non MAGA majority because that's the other thing, too. Trying to peel off 2 or 3% of the 77 million who voted for Trump when you have 84,361,954 Americans who were eligible to vote in the 2024 election, citizens, but who didn't vote. And the 79,333,813 who did cast a ballot but voted Down ballot only is skip the presidential election, voted for third party presidential candidates, or voted for Vice President Harris. That's the universe that you fight for. That's the universe that we at the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC plan to engage. Others can try to peel off some of that 77 million that voted for Trump. We will spend all of our time in the world of the 164 million who didn't vote for Trump. And then let's see how this works out in 2025, 2026, 2027, because in 2025 we have Virginia and New Jersey. In 2027 we have Kentucky, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And then, of course, midterms in 2026 and a presidential election year in 2028. So, once again, please visit www.futurepac.today. Click the donate link. We need your help. Please help us so we can get fully in the fight, state by state, congressional seat by congressional seat, and save our country for us and them. We're for all of us, but we have to focus on those who are willing to be a part of us first. Thank you, and I will catch you on the other side.